Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and a disembodied voice, Justin, who will be in and out today as he has stuff going on. So, we never know when he may be here, guys, but he will be here intermittently. So we have an intermittent disembodied voice. Hello. Hello. Yes, Fire Giant is Fire Gianting today. I figured I would finally get going on the bracelets and see if we can yes, he is a Fire Giant King. It is true. It is true. We'll get down there. yeah, right. The giant grows, yes. Ah, your therapist says not to listen to the intermittent disembodied voices, but your standard disembodied voices are okay? Good day, Dogger. Yes, he's only half painted. He grows slowly. That's the way of my show, because you can only see an hour and a half at a time. And so slowly the giant improves. Slowly he becomes painted. That's the magic, though, right? That is the magic. Like, we're gonna get at least some base on. We're gonna work out our base coat on these bracelets today. Both of them. I want to get both of them base coated at least, and then probably actually work on the remainder of the handle of the sword as well. Oh, the boat figure is. I haven't brought her back Static Overdrive since the ReaperCon. Just because I like to switch it up. Like, I like every couple of days, unless I'm really in the groove on a figure, every couple of days I like to switch it up. Did you see me do the pink on it? Like, I was starting to do the pink. I can show. Yeah, it's a figurehead. It's exactly what it's called. But I was working on Pirate King for a lot of the con, so I need to add a couple more miniatures into my rotation now. I feel like I need like 8. That way I can always reach for one that I feel like painting, right? That's the secret. Hey Nomad, how's it going? So yeah, so Fire Giant King, huge. Thank you, Bernie, for giving us a meme that will last forever. Hey Masara, thanks for the sub. We were just talking about how we needed to start building toward our next AMA and giveaway. So we're building. I think Justin said he was going to check. Actually, Justin is home today. So if Justin is like within hearing and he hears this, he can check his list and see how many subs we actually need to get to our 100 sub giveaway goal. Last time we got to give away a very large dragon. Okay, so figurehead, she got some bleached out pink on her that I was starting to work up in the same manner that I did the green up here. But there's also like, I want to wash out a lot more, I think, on the front of this leg. Deborah, I've got 2 other Rockies, but I think I find Rocky boring, like, because he's all the same color scales, or I could try to swap him up, but his scales don't really lend themselves very well to multicolor effects. So I'll do a Rocky at some point in NMM, just because people ask me to, but I'm not in the mood yet. So Rocky's currently sitting over in a box. He's not on the shelf of working on things. Hey, Wicked Elf, how's it going? Hey, Koofs, thanks with the Prime sub. Awesome. Yeah, I think Justin thought that, Justin thought we were somewhere between 20 and 40. I think we're in the 30s as far as our subtotal.
Oh, actually, yes. Sorry, I was,
yeah, you're actually home today, so you can check your list.
It was 37. And then we added 5 yesterday, so now we're at 42.
But except we just added like 2 or 3 more.
Oh, look at that. We're now at 45.
Yay! We are powering the Reaper subtotal. That's it. Hey, Rax, how's it going? Thank you for waving. Everyone wants to disappear in 2020. Yeah. No, I don't want to disappear. I had some good things happen this year. I will stand up against the negative wave of angst against 2020. I had to move in with my awesome painter boyfriend. Like, come on. Even if it was kind of like nerve-wracking doing it in the middle of a pandemic. Rocky 13. Yeah. Disembodied voice has an echo. Yeah, I forgot to put him in my ear, Aesel. That's my fault. I can put him in my ear. Hold on. Ah, figurehead. Ah, she just wants to fall over. So, yeah, you can see what I'm doing with figurehead here is I'm making her colors darker toward the back because that's where the ship would overshadow her. Let me get Justin in my ear here. There we go. Justin will not echo. Yes, it's disembodied voice from the grave when Justin. It's zombie Justin. And we don't need zombie Justin. And Nomad Zeke just brought us up to 50. So there we go. We're halfway to our AMA and giveaway. Then I have to figure out, like, some awesome other thing to, come on, Kiri, settle down. Kiri's like, but David's out in the kitchen. I can't go and see him. Yes, I closed the door today. Oh, no, it's the poor dog. But yeah, so that's where the figurehead stays for now. I am still deciding on a color for her shirt. I know what the bodice is going to be, so it's just the shirt. I'm kind of thinking a pale green, because that was done a lot with greens on figureheads, is you got a dark green and then a light green. A light green for the sash or for whatever, for the upper shirt. So we may do that. I'm still deciding. I want to alternate lights and darks. I want to alternate different colors. The bodice is going to be a black highlighted with dark blue. So yeah. Still thinking about it. Still working on it. All of these projects are just things that I'm going to work on from time to time as I get an idea or an inspiration. That's just the way that I tend to run, because then it's never hopefully boring for you guys. And you still get to see things progress. I'm not like doing the one-off thing that I used to do, where I just grab a model. These days I want to actually paint models that I like. So instead of just grabbing a random Reaper model and going with it, if I pick stuff that I enjoy, like the Fire Giant King and Mr. Dead Guy, then I can continue working on them until they are more or less done, because I like them. So I do like Dead Guy. I think Dead Guy is looking really good. Good morning, everybody who just came in. Awesome. Yes, and thank you for those gift subs, Nomad Zeke, for everybody. Subs make the world go round on the Twitch, that is for sure. So let's figure out how the heck we are going to split up these bracelets, because they are a pain in the butticus. I'm just looking at them and shaking my head. Some of these things, I know what I want to do, because there are some actual plates coming out, and those are going to be our blued steel look, which is nice because that helps us break up all of this warm that we're going to have. And I know that I want this outer bracelet to be gold, so we're going to start with that. When you're not sure what color to make something, decide on one part of it and work outward from there. This is true of all color theory. Good morning. Good morning. Elephant on a Throne. Isn't that thing huge, Missed Imp? I'd have to look at him. I do need to go and look at all the Reaper figures, and I wish I could sort on the store by big figures. I guess I could just sort by price, and that would give me the bigger figures just by default. Let's see here. We want our blue liner, because that's what our black is based on. We want red. I need to put in an order. A paint order to the Reaper. Okay, blue liner, leather. We want leather. I've only done ruddy leather on the shoulders so far. And I think the ruddy leather is probably not a great idea here. I guess I could highlight it up really orange. The problem I have with using ruddy leather here, guys, is that it's going up right next to the skin. And even though I've got a nice dark shadow on the skin, this color, which is ruddy leather, is very similar to the skin color, like especially after I finish highlighting this up. So I have a certain reluctance to make these little bands, which are probably leather, ruddy leather. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with red. So let me reach down and grab a red. And I think we're using Heraldic for this. Or we're using Asmodeus, and I think it was Heraldic. Pretty sure it was Heraldic red. Yeah, I think so. And Asmodeus probably for shading. Asmodeus is Oxblood, more or less. Did I glue the giant halves together yet? Did I? Yeah, I did. I did because I wanted to hold on to him down here. I wanted to stop holding on to him up here. Gurgi. So this came a point where it made sense. Once I had filled in all of this area around his waist, then it made sense to glue him together. But until I fill in all of the area, it didn't make sense anymore. I always wanted like this. I still want to work on anytime. Okay, so this isn't going to get glued on for a good long time. It's not going to get glued on until I finish the back side of the sword to match the front side. And the reason is that when you have to do freehand or small detail like these little floating embers, or like fill in runes like this, anything you need fine control for, you really don't want to be trying to paint that while it's attached to something. It's the same problem you get with dragon wings, where if you pre-attach them, they're so much harder to paint. And so whenever you have a large flat surface that you need to do some freehand detailing or fine detailing on to make it look nice, don't attach it until you've got all that done. And this guy, though, since he's got like mostly areas I've more or less blocked him in here, and this stuff is pretty easy. And adding this makes him, adding this to the model gives me an easy handle to hold until I get down to painting that area, at which point I'll have to mount him on a base of some sort. Some of this, though, is going to get covered. A lot of it's going to get covered by his cape, which is very large. So half of me is tempted to just putty in this area and not put the cape on, because it's like it covers up so much of his rear details. But yeah, so all right, let's get this going on. Yeah, I think I used heraldic red there. I'm pretty sure I did. We'll find out. So let's get a puddle of heraldic red. So that's what we're working with right now. We're working with blue, black. We're working with, and I guess I'll add the ruddy leather because I may want to put it up against other things. So let's put that on. So that means that our colors for these bracelets, we have 4 potential colors. And that is what they are. That's ruddy leather 9109. That's heraldic red 9402. This is rich leather 9429. And this is blue liner 9066. And we're mostly going to be putting some white in that and using it like these for the big iron plates that are on the back here. So we know what those iron plates are, and we know what our gold is. So let's just go ahead and block those in. Oh, I did want to talk about one other thing really quick. Thanks, Art of Mike Disney. And happy belated birthday. So yesterday David said I had a chat question that I didn't quite field, so I'm going to field it now, just for people who might come back and watch. Somebody was asking if all I was doing, if all that was involved in gemstones was doing the top highlighting, because that's the way I started out, doing a lot of the top highlighting on these little tiny gems yesterday. And that is not the case, but when you're working with such small gems, it really isn't feasible to try to put the transmitted light in all of them. Instead, I concentrated on doing it with some of the bigger gems. So like this guy has an under transmitted light coming through. This gem does as well. This gem up top does. The gems that are big enough, this guy here on the bottom, these are separated out. Essentially, if it's not part of a cluster, this one even has some transmitted light. That one does, but if it's part of a big clumped up cluster here, the only way to really paint these tiny little ones is just to get your base color and then if you do the edge highlighting and maybe put a little extra highlighting layered out, like blended out. If you look very closely at these, you can see that I am blending. I'm going from dark to the middle purple up to the light. I'm not just putting a flat highlight on the upper surfaces for these guys. Yeah, they asked me to do the video clip and it was totally a no-brainer. Yes, happy belated birthday. Or I guess I was there to say happy birthday to you on time. It was just this. It was just a digital vestige of me. There we go. But yes. So anyway, guys, so I wanted to settle that. It's like, no, you still need to do transmitted light where you have room. It's not just top highlighting, but you do only really have room to do it on like bigger gems that have some area exposed toward the bottom, because that's where you're going to see it. So there you go. To answer the question from yesterday, person who asked it, if I missed you yesterday, hopefully that clarifies things. There's when you get down to small, ultra small reflective surfaces, there's only so much you can do. Like when I do this, when I start doing these in NMM, like these little tiny details, it's going to be pinpoint highlighting, and it's not going to follow all of the rules that NMM normally follows. Because when you're doing, and actually, I think I did a video on this not long ago, but NMM on detailed surfaces, on finely detailed surfaces, is very pinpoint. It's not, you don't have a lot of room to do anything, so you really only need to hit the highlight, the shadow, and the under reflection where you can. And it's the same thing with those gemstones. It's like you have limited room, so you just need to nail the things that say shiny. Yeah, I don't know, Miss Stimp. The problem with those big things is that if they take a long time to paint, and the problem with the elephant is he's all the, like, he's, unless he's got a lot of decoration on him, he looks very, like, he's a lot of elephant. There's a lot of elephant or throne to paint, right? And it would take a very long time, and it'd be somewhat repetitive. Like, that's what I'm going to run into with the figurehead a little bit, although the weathering redeems it a bit, is that it is very large, and there are large spaces where I'm just going to be painting the green or painting the pink, or, you know, I'm going pretty fast with it, all things considered. Just trying to get colors down on big surfaces, but that is the problem with big models that aren't too detailed. Like, Fire Giant King here is almost perfect, because he's got a lot of different, even though it's a lot of the same colors, a lot of his surfaces are different. And so it's a little bit different every time you cover it. Like, I'm covering a lot of NMM gold on this, but there's a lot of different surfaces to do it on. So I get to talk about different things as I do it, even though the colors are always the same. So we know this decorative bracelet, we want it to be gold. It's obviously decorative. It's obviously not part of the armor. He's got it on over everything else. So these I think are decorative, and I'm going to make them NMM. Although I might paint in the panel, the inner panel around the diamond shape in a different color. We'll see. Or I may just go and take it like dark. So, all right, let's start with this. And actually, I may switch to a non-round brush. I need really a flat to get this color on a little bit faster, I think, much as I'm using a big brush. Where is my flat? There it is. Oh, Wolfgang asked what makes a paint a liner. Thank you. Wolfgang, liners have a very different base chemically than our other paints. So that doesn't mean you can't use them as a regular paint, but they use a base that makes them really good for lining, and the qualities that make them good for lining specifically are that they're a little more fluid out of the bottle. They have a much higher ratio of flow improver added to them, and they are a little bit translucent. So by just thinning a little bit more or a little bit less, you can tune them very, very easily to the level of lining you want. So sometimes you want a really dark line if you're trying to go for a very cartoony look on like an anime model, or you just want a really dark line because you're doing panel lines or whatever. And sometimes, like if you're working on a historical figure or just a more naturalistic figure, you want a more subtle line. You still want the line to make everything stand out, but you might want it to be a lot more subtle. And so you can thin the liners just a tiny bit, and it will make them function, you know, as kind of it'll make them a little more transparent, a little more natural. You can do that more easily with the liner base than you can with a regular paint, where you might need to thin quite a bit to get, like when I use walnut for liner, if I want it to go kind of naturalistic, I have to thin it a lot. I have to spend a lot of time doing that. Whereas with a liner, it's very easy. So, I scraped off some paint there. But yeah, so we'll do that. So as we work out, I want to do these at the same time, because I don't want to get into the, oh, I did this one and now I don't want to go back and do this one thing. So, and using the flat here enables me to go much faster, you can see. I actually need a new flat of this size. It's useful for big models. It's probably about a number 2 flat. And this is a sable one, but you could use a Taklon. I kind of have a theory that using a sable for base coating your bones may be more effective than using a synthetic brush, because a softer brush will usually lay down the paint in a slightly more even layer. So the way your bristles operate, the stiffness of them, can have an impact on how even your coat goes down on bones models. That's my theory. I haven't sat and tested it out extremely much, but Kiwi, what's up? I know David is not in the room and you are being a silly dog. You need to settle down, young lady. Yeah, you do. We're streaming today, and that means you have to stay in the room. She got spoiled over ReaperCon. We had the door open all the time. Now she's like, I want to go out and drink water. I want to go out and get my food. I don't want to sit here. Yeah, you need to go and nap. All right, so we're getting the back end of this figured in. It's almost done, more or less. And speaking of lining, we will be lining around these thingies as well. All right, so we've got our first thing in the horrible bracelet pile of doom. Yep, have fun, Wicked Elf. Yeah, liners are also, because of their transparency, Wolfgang, they are very good for doing like a starting wash over your bones if you want to. A lot of people use them kind of to prime their bones, where they'll mix them with matte medium or a brush-on sealer, and they'll put a heavy, like a wash over the surface, and it'll outline all of the details for them so they can see what's what. Kiri, I think you need to settle down. Come on, here. Nope, settle. Not gonna let you out. Nope. The dog will have to suffer. All right, so now we're getting to the point where we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with the rest of this stuff? Well, first off, I'm going to put those armor plates together. Good girl, Kiri. That's the thing about a dog. It's like, she's like, I'm going to stand here. I'm going to stand here. Oh, Mama stopped paying attention to me. Now I'm going to go lie down like I should. Kiri is a master of the what can I get Mom to do dog school of behavior. So she'll be like, hey, I'm not going to eat my food. Will you give me something special on it? And I'll be like, nope. And she'll be like, okay, I'll eat my food. That kind of thing. Yeah, a lot of people use brown liner for that, Wolfgang. So if you sometimes, if you like that effect, you could, they prep their bones with that, and then the paint sticks to the liner really well, and the liner seems to stick to the bones really well. So the key is to thin it with like a brush-on sealer or matte medium instead of thinning it with just water. You want it to keep some of its tackiness, so to speak. You want it to be thicker, not thinner, and not as watery. So I'm gonna block in these guys. I put a little bit of white in my blue liner just so I can get that blue color. It's gonna be similar like shade to the skin, like maybe a little bit darker, I guess. So not too bad. But it's going to be very, obviously, when I add white to blue liner, it goes very blue. So it'll differentiate itself from the skin that way, which is nice. So I'm pretty much blocking in the things that I know. The things I know what color they're going to be. And from there, I can use this to figure out what color the rest of the things need to be. And there's a pattern, there's a couple of patterned pieces here. I'll probably do red. What's important is to kind of alternate, is to go back and forth and make sure that you've got different colors. If you're going to put two of the same color next to each other, like overlapping plates, you want to make sure to highlight the edges really starkly or have some lining to make them stand out. He's very fancy, so I'm assuming a lot of different colors and bling on his armor there. So let's see here. So these plates are kind of coming out under there. I'm trying to figure out what everything is. It looks like this is part of a leather cuff. Looking at this, because there's these big stitches here, like big chunks or rivets that are like putting on this thing. So I'm actually going to guess that it's gold again, and that this is colored. And then these big rivets, I don't know yet. Maybe I'll do them in blue-black. I need to figure it out, though. So I'm like, This is where it gets hard. When you've got all these overlapping areas, and you're just like, well, wait a minute. What surface is this? Oh, but if I do it that way, it's not going to look great. So you kind of have to figure out what's going to look good and what makes sense. Like, I thought these were stitches, but then it looks like they have actual rivets on them. So then it's like, well, they're kind of stitches, but they're actually just fastener bands. Back here, I'm going to have to do something because I'm right up against my other blue right here. So that's okay, because I can do a gold band around these. Like, there's a rim around these armor plates that I could totally do gold embossed. So that will help to separate all of that out. Just try to put yourself in a position where you don't have a bunch of the same stuff all together. It gets very, very boring. We're just going to get that blocked in, and then we're going to see. All right. I need to look at this. So weirdly, okay, so what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing this seam. You see it? That goes through, here's the fastener. And what this is reading like is that this entire thing is all one thing. Like this and this and this. Because the seam here goes all the way up into it. That means these are all the same, part of the same cuff. Rex, I never prime bones. Ever. And so if you see a primed model on my stream, it's because it's metal. But I always prime metal. You always prime metal and resin. Always, always, always. And 3D prints. Always prime. But bones material, I never prime. I would just wash it and paint it. So essentially washing it, I mean, I throw it into one of my plastic mixing bowls with some dish soap and very hot water. And I sloosh it around and then I rinse it thoroughly and let it dry overnight. And I find that the paint adheres to the bones just fine without having issues. So... yeah, right, Shadow Raven, right? Oh, no problem, Wolfgang. Yeah, I love the bluish armor because it's still in keeping with the Fire Giant, but it lets you introduce a cool color. So it's not all warm, which can be very boring to the eye. Like, the eye really likes to have a little bit of variety in warm and cool. Now, you can make a color look very cool next to, if you put all sorts of really warm colors, then you have a slightly more muted color, it'll read cool. But I actually like having the blue because it's a complementary color to the orange. And in this case, our blue is very dark and our orange is very bright. So it really helps everything look interesting and stand out. All right, so since that is, so now we know all the way to here. So this is the same all the way to here. So here's another fastener. And that's where I see the little, the slash here go through to here, and it ends at this piece. So this, from this band all the way back, is one piece of armor, of leather bracer. And then we've got another metal band coming out, another big chunk of metal coming out from under that. So we're going to paint that one with that. And where I don't have a rim sculpted, a decorative rim sculpted, like here, I will just paint on a decorative, like a gold band, a gold edge. I'll just paint plastic surgery it and create the illusion that there is one sculpted there, which is pretty easy, all things considered. To make it separate from this big chunk that's the same color. Highlights will help with that, but sometimes you want a little extra bling if you're a Fire Giant King. So, why not? Like, I'm just imagining how much these bracelets actually weigh, and I'm just like, geez, there's a reason this dude is ripped. Yeah, it's blue liner with a tiny bit of white in it, Val. I really like it for any, like, kind of like blued steel or black iron with a bit of a cold finish. In here, it's meant to be like iron, and it's just, I'm playing with it. A lot of concept artists tend to do this sort of thing. They'll choose a very cooled black for the armor on Fire Giants because it contrasts so well with all the fire and red and orange. Alrighty, so now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put another, because I've got no blue on this side, but I've got a lot of blue on this side. I think I am going to make this area right here. I wasn't sure. It's really smooth and you can't tell what it's really supposed to be. And it's not part of the previous cuff. So I think I'm going to actually make it iron and take that all the way around. That way I've got some blue interrupting everything here, and it kind of brings these plates, you know, brings a bit of that color into the front here. And then I really have to start thinking, all right, I think these little fasteners, I actually want to make just straight up armor metal. I normally would make them gold, but there's going to be so much gold under them that I don't know I want to. I might change my mind about that later. Normally with smaller details, you want them to be lighter and brighter, not darker, because you want them to stand out. Hey, JT, thanks for that sub. We're adding up toward our sub goal for our next AMA and giveaway. That one's resin. Yeah, Jedi Ninja Druid. He's got like just we use just like Krylon black flat or David does. He has the black primer. I actually didn't own any. But this is just a Krylon that is, you want to be very gentle when you spray it, since automotive primers, the problem is if you spray them too heavily, they're easily going to glob up detail. But the white overspray, although this is actually paint. I actually went back in with white to make the highlights brighter toward the top. But this spray that you can see here is all the natural primer, and I used Games Workshop white, I think. The GW white seems to give less speckle. You can see that it's actually given quite a nice fade, even though you see some speckling. It's not as overt as other primers. So this one I use GW white on. Sometimes I also use, my other favorite primer is Tamiya Fine Surface. I use their light gray a lot for models that are resin or metal. Alrighty, let's see here. So now we have to make some more decisions. And the big decision is, this is a separate band here. So I think probably we could do an alternating red and gold on this one. And I'm thinking maybe I want to go leather and leather, because this is a piece. Do I want to go leather there or red? I might want to go red with that. So let's try to alternate. Let's say, okay, these bands here are going to be leather. Like the whole band is leather over the top of the metal. It's just studded leather. And this, as you can see, the ruddy leather actually looks really good here. It looks good because it sets off the gold, and it also looks good because it's really warm against that blue, even though they're both a darker color. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to put two darker colors next to each other, make sure that one is really warm and one is cold. Then you can get away with it. You need your contrast somewhere, and if you're not putting a light color next to a darker color, like this gold is going to be highlighted way up, right, to end up really bright, and the leather won't be nearly as bright. If you're not going to do a light next to a darker color for your contrast, then you want warm and cool contrast. Those are your options. So with something like this, I definitely don't paint it all piecemeal like I do in the past. Like, I'm not just going to paint this gold bracelet. I really want to figure out what all my colors are in this area because it's so complicated. Like I said, I might go back on that blue fastener there. I might want to make it brighter and lighter and make it gold instead. I'm going to go with this for now. And then, because I know this is all one piece, I can go with the brown leather over here also. Chris probably, I mean, he might have meant this to be all metal, but, you know, when it comes down to it on models, I consider leather plates, like boiled leather plates and metal plates, to be really interchangeable in how you paint a model. And so I have no problem taking something that the sculptor meant to be metal and painting it as if it's a plate that's coated with leather, you know, like the boiled leather type stuff, and vice versa. So I find that gives me more leeway in depicting character models because I don't have to paint the model like it's got leather. I can paint it like that is metal instead, or vice versa. So it's very easy then to turn a rogue into a dual-wielding warrior, you know, and so on, and turning a warrior into more of a rogue. So if you like the figure and the weapons fit, then, you know, if it comes down to leather versus metal armor, it's like you can paint them interchangeably, guys. You really can. It's all color at that point. It's all color and how you do it. So you really have control there. Sometimes, like with scale mail, or not with scale mail, with chainmail, obviously you're bound to leather at that, or bound to metal at that point. But when it comes to plates, they really can be anything. All right. Yeah, a lot of people really like Stynylrez. I just don't use an airbrush, really, so I don't use Stynylrez. I prefer spray primer if I'm going to be doing a primer at all, so I tend to use those. There are certainly enough people out there like hyping up Stynylrez without me jumping on the bandwagon. I don't think Stynylrez needs any help at this point. It's just your personal preference. When it comes to primer, what's most important is that you are comfortable with the way that you're using it, because every primer is a little different. You spray it closer, you spray it farther away, you spray it in a stream, you spray it in short bursts. It depends on what you're trying to do. What finish are you looking for? Because primers have different finishes for sure. So with primer, if you're comfortable with spraying it and you get good results, don't think you have to switch to GW or Stynylrez or whatever somebody else is using just because they get great results with it. You're used to what you're using. So as long as you're not getting fuzzy primer craziness, stick to it. Gesso's too textured for me for miniatures, Mathophile. Because the point of gesso is to provide texture. But again, if you get good results with it, then you get good results with it, right? It's it really is. It really does vary. And yeah, they make finer textured gessos for sure. But the point of gesso is really to give tooth. So that may not work on some smaller models with finer detail. That's weird then. It's a weird gesso. It's art products trying to make them diversify themselves so they can squeeze a little extra money out of people. The point of gesso was always to add a workable surface for canvas, so I think it's funny when they make a gesso that has no texture. I assume it's at that point it's just more of a base coat brush on of paint, and it's not actually gesso in the truest sense of the word. I don't know. I'd have to look up the chemical properties of gesso. Most paints do that actually, Mathophile. It's a specific vinyl or specific resin that does that shrinky thing. It's the same thing that GW contrast paints do. All paint shrinks a little bit as it dries, but certain resins shrink more. And so what then they're doing, if that's what that particular product is supposed to do, then the resin they have chosen for that is probably a very high coverage, softer, larger particle resin. Which makes sense for gesso because you want it to be normally a little bit thicker with a bit more body. Yeah, I think we use the Rust-Oleum 2x black for our base coats. I mean, it is nice and smooth, and if you put it on gently and you don't go crazy, it doesn't glob up details. Look, guys, she's getting a prime job. I need to touch up stuff and then do a zenith on her. She's actually all put together except for her head and her sword arm are still separate. I got a lot of things primed this past weekend. I wanted to have some projects kind of sitting over on my sideboard that I could kind of do what I do with this stuff, is just work on them as I feel like it. My Valkyrie's over there, and then I've got my orc bust is put together mostly. Yeah, I mean, once you've got a great primer formulation, you license it out. AK, making your own primer is a pain in the butt often, especially if there's something out there that already works, so it makes sense that AK would just license it if they weren't in a position to be able to do their own. Reaper looked into doing spray primers, but it is a very large investment, and you never get... You can't just say, hey, our Reaper primer is great, and we want to make it into an aerosol. That doesn't work, because it's... water-based versus solvent. So it's it does make sense if you haven't found a good primer formulation, that if somebody like Stynylrez is doing one and they're putting it out very inexpensively, it makes sense that you could just rebrand it for your own line. A lot of paint companies, a lot of model companies do that. They just rebrand. I mean, look at, is it Gale Force 9 that uses Woodland Scenic stuff? Just repackaged? But it's useful because they do it in such small packages. So it actually works. Yeah, fluidity though can vary. Like Vallejo is a very fluid... Vallejo Game Color has a very fluid base, but it's also a thicker... it's also a heavier resin. So... There's two different, it's just like two different chemical properties. Yo, Xanacles. Yeah, no, Zeke. Well, you can't forget to buy it during ReaperCon when they run out in the first 5 minutes. Then it's not forget. It's like, I went to buy it and I couldn't buy it. Yeah, I don't know. I never had much luck with the Vallejo primer. Their matte sealer was a little bit too shiny for me, so I didn't really jump in on their spray products, Gurgi. All right, so we got all of our leather stuff, so now we got to figure out our red. So I think I'm going to do straight up red as my base. I can always take it down. If I start as a darker red, it's going to be harder to work up. Red is one of those colors that has just enough translucency to completely foil you. If you want to make it bright when you've started dark, you really have to underpaint white at that point, which is annoying. I probably will need to do it a bit on my Targaryens that I'm doing for Darksword. We'll see. I'm going to be probably working on those on my stream later. I was doing the very, very, very small detailed dragon on the chest of the one the other day. Need to figure out the blonde hair formulations. Maybe we'll work on hair today. That'll be this afternoon around 4:30 Central, USA time. All right, so as I'm doing this, I'm kind of assessing whether these colors are alternating well on the model. So far, the red is definitely the brightest, although I know I'm going to tone it down just a little bit because it is like really, really bright over the base bones color. That's a problem when starting with a medium red, is that it goes very, very bright. Red is just like, you figure out the way you like to paint it, and then you paint it that way from then on. All right, so if we're doing the zigzag diamonds in red here, we also should do them here, because they're similar surfaces. So if he has carefully put together his ensemble, I am going to assume that that things with similar patterns will have similar colors. And I may do the alternating band on this dragon tooth design in gold. I may not. I'm going to have a lot of gold anyway, like right next to it, so I'm not certain that I want to make some of these triangles gold. I could also do some of the triangles in black. Like I could probably alternate, since this is a separate band up here, I could do gold dragon's teeth in this one, like alternating with the red. And over here, since I have that gold band right next to it, I could alternate black. So that's something that could be done if I wanted to really fancy this up. And it's all about how much time you want to put into it. Like, if you're going to be lazy, then you're just going to make all these dragon's teeth the same color and highlight them all at the same time. But if you want to make it really, really fancy and spend some time on it, then you can alternate colors, which does tend to look cool. And it does look like you spent a little more time on it. Like, there's this criteria in the ReaperCon painting competition, the open, and it's like degree of difficulty. So, like, when we're judging open, which includes sculpting and converting, if you do a very, very simple conversion, like just a weapon swap, you're probably not going to score totally high, even if the model is painted really well, because we're looking at the degree of difficulty of the sculpting work that you did, and that counts for, like, you know, the sculpting work counts for 30%, but then the degree of difficulty might count for like 15 or 10, you know, so it's things like that. So that's kind of what comes in here. Like, if I were doing this guy for competition, I would absolutely alternate colors on these dragon teeth bands, because the degree of difficulty is greater, the amount of, you know, effort is greater, and judges will recognize that rather than just saying, oh, it's red. Though if you did it something cool, like you did maybe an NMM red on this, then the degree of difficulty goes up. So you could get away with making it a unicolor and still score well in that. Oh, who's, Vithiel. Yes. So smaller wells. Let me talk about that, actually. Let me go up. I'm painting a lot, and so I am, there we go, bought a ceramic palette. So don't, yeah, Vithiel, I wouldn't use retarder, I would use bigger puddles. Because I used to use this in Texas when my house, I kept my house actually pretty warm in the summer, because I didn't want a big AC bill. But what I normally have in these wells is like between 8 to 10 drops of liquid, because I'm using like usually like at the very least 4, but even that dries a little bit too fast. This is a four drop. I usually use a 6 drops of paint, and then I'm adding a bunch of water and maybe flow improver, and if you want to add a drop of drying retarder, that works too. But the deeper the puddle, the more fluid in each well, that's what makes it stay at the right consistency. So if you're using this well palette, but you're only using a couple drops of paint, it's going to dry right away. It's absolutely. You want to build a nice deep well with, I mean, I used to use, my base could be 6 to 8 drops of paint, and then it could be up to 8 drops of water, depending on what I'm doing. So that's the key to this palette, is use this when you need thinner paint applications. Like when you know you're going to be thinning your paint down to like a 2 to 1 or a 1 to 1 paint to water, or even thinner if you're doing washes or glazes. And then the paint's going to stay, even in a dry climate, it's going to take a lot longer to dry. But if you're using thicker paint applications, like, you know, a base coat, like a 4 or 5 to 1 paint to water, and you're only using a couple drops of paint, yeah, it's going to dry super fast. So that's why I always use more paint puddle. More paint puddle. Deeper paint puddles. Mention contrast. Like dark, warm, cool. In that case, static overdrive, it's all about the highlights. So, like, I have a dark shadow, like, you know, I might have a darker shadow down here. I might have a dark up here against this this hellhound, but then I've got to use highlights to make the edges stand out. So the only thing you can do on a rogue like that is to like really bring up your highlights where the light is, and make the surfaces stand out. Like when I go back here and I do all these, or even where I did it here, see how I'm using really dark lining, and even though this is like a blue black, I'm bringing up the edge highlights and the pinpoint highlights, and that produces enough contrast that you can see things stand out. So blacks and dark browns, and then also you could go with a blue black like I did here, like add a little bit of blue liner to your black, or add or use pure black for your base coat, but then use blue liner with a touch of white for your highlights. And go with the dark brown, go with a much warmer highlight, like an orange brown mixed into it. And that's going to make them look very different. I think I'm going to just wait for the whole Vex kit. Like the everything you need to use the Vex. You know, that sort of thing. I mean, Mathifial in that case, I would choose a nice neutral color to marry the piece together. So, like, make sure that you're using, like, a dark brown, a nice warm dark brown, like russet brown or muddy brown or something like that, or blackened brown, highlight it up with those. And use that to unite your boots, your belt, your you know, your backpack or your coin purse or your whatever, and that's really your only choice. I mean, if the character is garish, the character is garish. You have no choice at that point. That's why painting people's D&D characters is sometimes like an exercise in like biting your tongue and just painting, even though if it looks terrible. Because if it's supposed to look terrible, then make it look terrible. But, you know, tell them, well, it's going to look terrible because your character, by its description, these colors don't go together and you didn't want them to, so... But they're probably going to be overjoyed about that. If they're playing a character that takes great joy in being mismatched in colors, then, I mean, that's just the way it goes. Yeah, essentially that's it. The small wells also dry slower than the big wells, but you should make deeper puddles. Like, seriously, guys, if you find that your paint in the wells is drying too fast, is what's happening is you have too much surface area and not enough fluid. All right, let me see here. I'm just getting up on all the latest stuff. Oh, just squeezing a question, Static Overdrive, and hopefully if I miss it, somebody will remind me. When I'm sitting here trying to lay paint down, sometimes I miss a question if it slides back. Yeah, more paint puddle. Just try using, like, you know, like add, I don't know how many drops of paint you're normally using in these, but like I said, at minimum 4, but usually 6 is what I do. And then I can paint for, like, I used to paint all of Paint Club. If I was making 6 or 8 drop wells, I mean, it would last, I might add water once during that 4-hour stretch to keep it at a consistency. You do need to add a little water here and there. Keep an eye on it. You can tell when it's starting to look tacky and gummy on the top. That's when you just add a brush full of water and just bring it right back to where you need it. Twisted Oma, everybody was giving me crap for not working on the gauntlets. So I have been talking about how I am choosing colors to make everything stand out as different on these overlapping, overlayering surfaces. So, yup. But now I'm stuck. Now, guys, now I'm stuck. Now I have to think about this last inner ring. This is the annoying one. So we know that it's a part of this greater ensemble. And it is similar to the leather straps. But if we do it in leather, then it's going to look just like the other part. Now, that's not a crime, and we could totally do it in leather. But the problem is that the leather is also the closest color to our skin tone. So we're like, oh, no, we don't want to do that. So it's not metal. It's part of this. So it's probably leather. So probably the answer is to go red. Even though it's not the same as all of its other straps, this is a separate piece, I think. Or no, it isn't. It's the same piece. All right, so I'm going to alternate. I'm going to say that the artist who created this, left the base leather, but then colored the inner leather and the outer leather. I could also go gold with it if it looked like it was a separate piece, but it doesn't to me, and so I'm going to go with red leather. I'm going to alternate. But what this means is that I may decide to do the dragon teeth design alternating after all, because I want this to be different than the other red surfaces. So I may end up doing what I said before, alternating black on this one and alternating gold on this outer one. Just to make them different from this just basic red leather band. I mean, no, I think that for small touch-ups you use a wet palette, Val. Like, if I only need a tiny touch-up of paint and I don't want to get my palette dirty, I'd use a wet palette, because then I can just rinse off the parchment paper. I mean, if you're trying to do something really thinned, then use the wells or the tiny tattoo cups, but you shouldn't ever need, like, if you need enough paint, if you're just doing a touch-up, then you don't need more than a couple of brushes. I whip out my wet palette, because at that point, I'm going to put it down a little bit of paint, I'm going to use my little bit of paint, and then I'm going to just wash it off the paper, which is a lot easier than trying to clean out a well after it's dried. At least I find it so. Or even a well, just take my whole well palette and wash it is, something I save for the end of my painting session. If I just want to do a touch-up. The other option is that I just do, the other option that I do if I just need a color for touch-up is I just put the one drop in here, use it right away, and then I drop a bunch of water into it so that it doesn't dry in the cup. So I can rinse it out easily. I've owned a wet palette for many years, Lord Cypherius. I've owned it long enough to have lost half of it. It no longer has a lid. I have been using it to paint. You've just missed it, apparently, but I've been using my wet palette to paint Mr. Troll. Because we're working fast. And I believe, for me, the wet palette is a tool that encourages me to work fast. The wet palette encourages a lot of spot blends. So for a model where I'm using just a couple colors, I find it utilitarian. It is just that said, I really don't like it for many reasons, but that's because I like to control my paint consistency, and the wet palette works against me there. But if I'm using all thick paint to do the wet blending on that troll skin, or even just to do those gemstones, the wet palette is perfectly feasible. Though I do believe I used my well palette yesterday on the gemstones. Yeah, I did. So it's like, I always tell people, use both. Understand that they encourage different types of painting, different styles of painting. and figure out which one is for you at the particular point in your painting life, right? What I always tell people is you may want to switch to the well palette so that you can learn paint consistency, because you can control the ratio of drops to water and see how the paint reacts. After you've learned what it's supposed to look like and you can just mix it without even thinking about it, that's when you can go to wet palette, because wet palette, then you can just, create exactly what you want because you know what it's supposed to look like. But if you go into wet palette without an understanding of thinning your paint and how much water you need to get certain effects and how the paint should look to get a certain effect, that's when it can be frustrating. Especially if you are trying to master smooth blending, which, a lot of Europeans kind of diss the smooth blending these days, but it's a tool, right? Some surfaces you still want smoothness. And so if you're trying to master that, because it can be one of the more difficult things to master in miniature painting, using a wet palette can really make that hard for you. So if you're trying to learn smooth blending and you are having trouble and you're using a wet palette, try the well palette, because you can then create, specific ratios of paint to water, and that's really where you start to understand it. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Umbro. I'm being hosted on my, I set up my channel to host me on Reaper because I do my Reaper show every morning. Last week was weird because Justin, essentially all of Reaper kind of shut down for a week to regenerate after ReaperCon. And so Justin asked me to stream on my own channel instead so the show could still go. So most of the time in the morning hours, I'm going to be, I guess it's 11:30 in the morning Central Time. I'm going to be here on Reaper's channel. And when I do that, I'm going to be toolboxing. So that's the toolbox. But when I'm on my own channel, then I'm going to be using my Painting Big logo. And I'm going to be on my own channel this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. We'll probably do some blonde hair and some more work on my Targaryens for Dark Sword. And I need to finish up the tiny, tiny little dragon on her chest. Yep. Although I have both on my starting soon screen. I have both logos on my starting soon screen here. But yeah. But yeah, so, they're useful for different things. The different types of palettes, neither one is better than the other, although they are better for the other depending on your style. Like for me, if I had to choose one to go forward with forever, it would be my well palette. Because I do a lot of smooth blends, and I like to control the viscosity of my paint. And I get very irritated at my wet palette when it wicks too much water away from the paint or too much water into the paint. I hate that it's imprecise that way. Some painters really like that. They groove on it. Everything they do is texture. It's not the way that I work. So for me, definitely there is one better than the other for my particular style. But I still make myself use the other and learn to use the other and learn what it's good for. Because just like with learning different techniques, different materials are different tools in your toolbox. Everything is a different tool. An airbrush is a tool, Different sorts of palettes are tools. Different sorts of brushes are tools. Different shapes of brushes are tools. Learning to use all of these things, learning what all these things are good for, and seeing if they fit your style is an important part of getting better at miniature painting. Like, if you really take to something, even if your friends all say that, they didn't understand it or get mileage out of it, but you can use it well, go for it. Doesn't matter if I can use it well or not, if you can use it well. Yeah, he needs the blue effect to offset the warmth of Cyphereus. Yeah. The beginning of the troll is about the wet palette. Oh, yeah, wet palette. Jetta's got it in one. So yeah, anybody who wants to see me really talk about the difference between a wet palette and a well palette, why I would use a wet palette for this process and how I'm using it, go back and find Rock Troll. His item number, if you search, you should be able to find it. His item number is 44002, and it's essentially the first episode is just blocking in all of this light here. And so it's very instructive, I hope. I felt that it worked very well. But I talk a lot about the wet palette there because I did want to talk about it, even though it's not my choice thing most of the time. But it's still a tool that I use from time to time, and that I think everybody should try. Like, everybody should try both types of palettes. We're all mad here, yes. Cheshire Cat. Or is that Mad Hatter? Yeah, it does stay put. Okay, cool. Alrighty. So, where are we? Okay, so we have figured out our pattern and we can now repeat it on the other side. I think I am going to block in my dragon's teeth here. And I'm going to go... I think I'm going to go with it's a hard call, because if I block in the black teeth here, then it's like going to make kind of a barrier up against this and not make leather red. And here I definitely want the gold instead of the red. So I think, yeah, let's do that. Let's try that. So there's like two ways I could have done this. I could have done the dragon teeth up against the gold, or the black dragon teeth up against the gold, or I could have done them up against the leather like I chose to. And the reason I chose to do it against the leather is because the leather and the red are very similar. And so I wanted to break that up. Doing it the other way would also have been a good answer, because the blue-black is a good contrast to the gold. So it would have made the gold bracelet stand out a little bit more, just like, you know, putting this black here makes the red stand out more here. But I decided I would rather have some contrast up against the leather. Thanks, Vimanaqua. Paint perfectionist. Yeah, I thought so. I'm a Cheshire Cat fan, so I don't remember many lines from Alice other than the ones the Cheshire Cat said. That was my earliest acting part, was in, I believe it was kindergarten or first grade, where, I think it was first grade, first or second grade, where we did a little scene from Alice in Wonderland, and I learned the Cheshire Cat lines. I have been a Cheshire Cat fan ever since. I mean, really, he's the sanest person in that whole book. I believe that my Reaper forum title is still Paint Goddess. Last I checked. I mean, just because you're a goddess doesn't mean you're omnipotent or anything. It just means, you know, somebody thinks you're good enough to worship you. Which, you know, I'm not that comfortable with worshiping me. I am rather fraught with peril in my daily existence. But with paint, I guess, maybe. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. You've come to it before I brought it up, Twisted Oma. I mean, I'm going to do all of the rivets are going to be gold, right? So that's gonna, you know, everything's gonna separate out just nicely, I think. And I like the dragon teeth there. That adds a lot to it instead of just being blank red. Yes, itty bitty painting space, exactly. Yeah, and an apartment in the Bay Area, you bet it's an itty bitty painting space. I mean, all my gold is a bit tarnished here, right? Actually, all my gold is very red on this model. So gold doesn't tarnish. Remember that. Gold might get, you know, dirt and stuff built up on top of it if it's being used a lot, but gold does not actually tarnish. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, chilling it makes sense. It would retard the paint drying, for sure. Just like keeping your room colder will retard your paint drying time. I like Jasper Fforde. I've read a couple of his books. I would think that pure gold would not blacken Lord Zyphirius. I would think that it would be if the gold is an alloy, like if it's cut, if it's not pure 24 karat. I could be wrong on this, but it was my impression that 24 karat gold did not ever tarnish. And my dog is, I have a Q emergency, guys. I got to get her outside. I'll be right back, all right?
I'm here. How is everyone? Also, V-Man, to answer your question, yeah, I had time. I had time to kind of relax and decompress, and I even kind of planned a small vacation for this next February. Hopefully, things are like uh, okay to travel and stuff. We'll see. The studio is there's a couple of things we got to fix. There major things we have to get done. So we're still going to be doing remote Reaper Live and remote what else? Yes, programming week to week right now isn't going to change just yet because we have to finish the studio. We have time now to actually polish the studio between sound, the sound baffling and the lighting rail system that we have. It kind of broke a little bit during the ReaperCon. But yeah, no, it's the studio's coming along. It's probably 80% done, 90% done, I would say. Um, and there's stuff we gotta furnish it with, like tables and things like that, so that we can actually mount stuff. Put in some patch panels so that we can run cables into the control room without drilling holes in the wall. You know what? I agree, Trash. I had actually joked about that. I was like, I'm gonna get 2 ferns. No one understood the joke though. John wasn't there; he would have understood, but no one understood the joke. Um, when I told him I wanted to get 2 ferns for the set. Also, yeah, for everyone who's experiencing all of this air quality issue stuff up in the out in the west and the Pacific Northwest, please be careful, guys. Um, we not only do we make great products, but we care about you guys genuinely. That's not nonsense. I promise. We genuinely care about y'all's health. So please try not to breathe in anything unnecessarily. I saw that Holly Monster had made a box fan with a an air filter on the other side, like a home air filter, and it seemed to be doing a pretty good job. So that helps. One thing I'll say though is I don't think air quality has dropped for us here in Texas to any real. I mean, if it has, I haven't noticed. Yeah, Road Dog, I would prefer you not, but I mean, I can't tell you what to do. If that is something you enjoy as a pastime, you know what? You enjoy it, I guess. Just be careful about it. Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, now you guys make me want to go look outside. And technically, I guess Texas is the Midwest, but I mean, it's kind of in its own like area. But I imagine the Panhandle's probably getting some stuff. I don't know if Oklahoma is. Um, like I said, at least in the DFW, I haven't noticed anything. But I also don't really go outside much, to be completely honest. Yeah, that makes sense, Chibi, because it's not. Yeah, Thank you, Twisted. I appreciate that. Yeah, we as far as all the tech stuff, I mean, like I talked about before, Frank was my sensei essentially, and he helped me with some problems. He helped me get some audio engineering stuff sorted out. But outside of that, I mean, it felt like we all had our own section of the Pentagon that we had to run, you know, and it was it came together. It congealed very well, considering that most stuff we have almost always goes over a little rocky the first time. It's almost always like you know, hashtag not professionals, and we really lean on it heavy when we do something new. Oh. Uh, Let me see here. You have to send that to me directly there, Bison Rider, because the links. Or I guess now that we do have more, in theory, we should have more mods in chat. You could always send it to a mod, and a mod can post it. But I need to start actually like talking to my mods in Twitch, getting them into a group, and having meetings with them and stuff. Because now that we have a substantial team.
Boop, I'm back. Substantial team? What? Reaper? Reaper never has enough. Hello, peoples. It's smoky here, Jetta, but it's actually a little less smoky today, but my phone says we still have unhealthy air quality. Even though when I look out, I don't see that. Let's see if it still says. Oh, hey, it's gotten better. Unhealthy air quality just for sensitive groups. Great, I can take my walk tonight. Woohoo! So yeah, alright guys, we're back. We're back! Oh no, except I forgot my glasses in Kiri's dog bag because I had to rush her outside. I wonder if I have my backup. My backup glasses are not nearly as good. Let's see. I think I have a pair of backup glasses over here. Oh, nope. Erg. Seriously? Seriously. Alright, I have to go get Kiri's dog bag and get my backup glasses. One moment. Alrighty. Now we're back with actual glasses. I just had to order more glasses. Every time you sneeze, there's a cascade of bless yous down my chat, David. He is preoccupied with work, but I'm sure he appreciates you all blessing him. The backup to the backup fail. Yes, indeedy. The backup to the backup failed, yes. Yeah, that's why I just ordered 3 new pairs of reading glasses. I almost ordered more powerful ones, but then I thought that would not be a good idea. Oh, and they're mowing right outside our window, so now hopefully there's not too much background noise for you guys. Oh, yeah, so if you went for a walk, if you lived in California, there would be no walking for me. Yeah, I've been walking, but I've just been shortening my walks with the unhealthy air quality. Yeah, so, yeah, so we were just blocking in Dragon Teeth. I want to do these alternating in gold, because I think I want that brightness next to the dark metal in the skin, so I'm gonna block these guys, these teeth in a different color. And you can see how similar the gold is to the red in its base coat. You know, they're very much the same. They're both warm. There's the same measure of light and dark. Like if you squint, you can see the gold is slightly lighter, but actually it hasn't dried, so it probably is almost exactly the same shade as the red. So actually to set these guys out, I will definitely line to set these guys off from each other. Just block in some more of this. But as you can see, I mean, It takes a long time to paint this giant. Like, he is not something you start and expect to be over with quickly if you want him to look good. Gold oxidizes slightly. Interesting, Nara. But what, I mean, that wouldn't be 24 karat because you want a certain level of indestructibility, right? You don't want to always have your wedding bands getting dinged. But did they say that that was the gold that did that? Or that it was... I think, is it gold and silver that get mixed for lesser gold? I just don't remember. Yes, doing the giant is a giant commitment. Exactly. Exactly, Nomad Zeke. Yeah, I mean, my normal vision is fine. It's just my close-in vision that's blurry these days, so I wear these, and there are 3 times. Yeah, I was gonna say, Taz, that was my understanding, is that it tends to need impurities for strength, as pure gold is extremely soft. And so nobody's got a 24 karat gold wedding band. They'd be able to bend it off their finger and put it back on. That's like those, the torques, the Celtic torques that were so high gold that they actually could bend them around their neck and then unbend them to take them off. But I don't know. Until somebody actually looks up the science, I have no idea. It was just my understanding, but I was never a metallurgist, and I never took a high enough level metals class to work with gold directly, so... Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking, is they'd have to, like, make higher strength by alloying with, like, titanium or something very strong, right? So it's still an alloy, then how can you call it 24 karat? I don't get it. Oh, okay. 24K still has impurities to increase the hardness. Thanks, Methophile. So I'm going to just take my blue and I'm going to line it. Even though it's not a pure liner anymore and I added white to it, it's still dark enough to make these guys stand out a little bit better. We never behave, Shadow Raven. Ask Justin. Hey there, Jill. I got a tungsten carbide one when I was married, but I mean, I was kind of sad about that. In reality, I liked my engagement band much better. Durability is not everything. Sometimes you just want something pretty, if you're a female. I'm actually super jealous of Andy Pieper. Did, I think, his daughter's wedding bands for her wedding. He did them in ZBrush, and then they got them cast, and it was just really cool. You want stuff that is pretty and you are not female, but you are a raccoon, Rings. You are a raccoon. And shiny objects are definitely in your bailiwick. Alright. Yeah, I mean, tungsten carbide. And for a masculine ring, I think tungsten is fine. I mean, it is kind of a pretty dark silver, but it's just you can't do anything with it, right? It's so very indestructible. You could stop a trash compactor with that thing. That's kind of why my ex got me that, is because I worked with, paint all the time. But in reality, I'd rather have just had a much prettier wedding band and not worn it to work, right? So, it's just the way it is. You realize these things after the fact. You learn. Right, yeah, Dragon Eye, so. But at least then you have a pretty ring. Bright, shiny things, yes. Yeah, Dogfather, there is that, right? If you had to get it cut off, then you're kind of in trouble. All right, filling in my little dragon teeth so that this looks a little better. And then we can work on highlighting some of this stuff tomorrow. Yeah, I might have to do this clasp in gold after all, because now that I've made the choice to do these dragon teeth in black, now this gold isn't going to show, or this black isn't going to show nearly as well. So I shall have to go back to gold on the clasp. There. Yeah, I tend to wear jewelry only on special days where I'm not doing anything that's going to hurt any of it. I have some nice, very nice necklaces that my wonderful man bought me. But I don't wear those as a matter of course usually. But I do like to have them for when we're going out, or I'm just feeling, you know, like it's going to be a really relaxed day without a lot of hazard to jewelry. Alright, so I'm going to just base coat these over so I remember to make them gold. And since I'm going in, notice how when you're going over the light gray of the bones material versus going over a black, you get a much lower coverage. So you do need to build that up with a couple of coats. This is how your base color matters. Yeah, I always liked that idea, Math File, just wearing your ring around your neck to keep it out of the way so you can still have it with you. A tattooed ring, yeah. Well, it depends on your partner, right? If you're both into it, then go for it. It makes sense if you're both into tattoos. Alrighty. Just gonna block in the rest of my time. I'm just gonna block in the plates on this other arm. Oh, and I need to finish the gold here, don't I? Remind myself where my gold is. Though these are on the other side of the arm, so they're not going to catch much light. Alright, so finally we figured out what color all of the stupid bracelets are. Thank you, Fire Giant King, for making us really work for it. I'm gonna yell at Chris Lewis about this one. I assumed they were just plated with gold, Val. I mean, they totally had plating a bit, you know. I'm assuming a Fire Giant can figure out how to plate something in gold. They do work with forges all day long. So, take some iron, dip it in shiny. And gold melts pretty low temperature, so you could easily do it. Just looking, okay, just talking about tungsten carbide. Cool. Cool. some touch-up. Not getting quite the coat I want on that. There. Cold-plated adamantium, right. Exactly. I'm gonna grab my bigger brush for these. Big flat. And once again, I'll likely do these rims around these plates in gold also. Yep, but we're going with ornamentation over functionality, or I'm going to assume the giant knew what he was doing. Who knows? Maybe he made his own armor. And maybe it's stretching because he, like, you know, doesn't want to admit that he gained 50 pounds after he got married. So he, like, made all of his armor and jewelry, like, smaller and does not want to listen to anybody telling him that he's put on a few. Eating all those adventurers, you know, they're definitely not low fat. It's blue liner with a touch of white in it. Oh, wow, that's interesting, Twisted Oma. Yeah, if she wore down the band that much. Wow. Yeah, dad bod giant. Well, totally. I mean, look at that. Totally. Oh, he's got it. He's got an adventurer belly here. This is not a beer belly. This is an adventurer belly for sure. That's why he's grumpy. Somebody just asked him if maybe he should upsize his armor. Yeah, super congrats on the 20th anniversary there, Dragon Eye. He does rock the dad bod. He's at least still got the biceps, right? It's all coming on down here. Definitely adding in. Obviously has a high sugar diet as well to get the belly going on there. So he's having a lot of carbs there, Giant. You know, I wonder if, like, he's eating all those adventurers rations. They're probably loaded with sugar. It's probably, like, good considered, like, you know, foodie for fire giants to, like, you know, have a little bit of your adventurer ration crunchiness on top of your adventurer's, you know, body part. You know, it's that marriage of savory and sweet or something. Gotta think in fire giant culture, like, gotta interpret all this stuff. Hey, Ultra Squid. Giant growth hormone. He probably drinks energy drinks. That's it. Do elves count as organic? I think elves are probably the most likely. Elves and halflings are probably the most likely to be organic. I don't think any human is organic. Washing down the adventurers with all that ale or Diet Coke. Oh, Lord. Oh, God. Yeah, right? It probably is mead. Mead plus caffeine. Oh, that sounds awful. 50th. Dang. You've been married a long time. Good on you for picking the right one out the gate. Alrighty. So let's see here. I think I want a little bit of pure blue liner because I want a line around all these bracelets to make them all stand out, just to give them that little extra punch. Since you're obviously still completely young, Twisted Oma, I'm going to say that you must have got married when you were 6. Oh yeah, the quarantine could be hard on it. Like I continued to walk during quarantine, so I didn't really add on any extra from that. When I went off keto, I kind of slowly gained 15 over like a year and a half. Many happy emotes. Yeah, Val, exactly. Yeah, when you get married when you're older, it's fine. I just don't let myself feel old. I mean, sometimes I get a little bit of perspective on it and like, wow, I've been alive a long time, but I'm in much better shape now physically than I was like during high school for just certainly when I was in college. Certainly much better shape now than then. So I exercise a lot more and I eat a lot healthier and I weigh less. So oh yeah, I know. I'm there, Taz. I was working out the summer where I was walking outdoors at 8 p.m. to do my walk, and it was 102 degrees and not low humidity. I made myself do it anyway because I was crazy. But I was really driven to get my health back. It was post-surgery days, and yeah, there's nothing like that to get you kind of focused on being healthy. So I suffered through the heat. But then again, I've always acclimated well to heat. I don't acclimate well to cold. Give me a tiny bit of cold, ask David, and I will be whining about it instantly. Yeah, right. The diet is harder if you're watching what you eat. Val, funny. Yeah, not having kids, I can kind of stay in that gray area where, I don't have that to constantly. Although my niece and nephew, considering my brother is 4 years younger than me and my niece is almost to college age, yeah. It's not quite as bad as having your own kids. Yeah, for the most part, Mighty Garrett, I appear to be at least keeping things even. I've the last hospital visit wasn't for stuff related to the first one. It was just something completely different. So that said, I have definitely been in the hospital more than I wanted to be. During the decade since turning 40. I guess it's not a full decade, but. All right, I'm just lining, guys, so I want to line all these areas before I start highlighting because I want that contrast to be at its max. So if I outline everything, then when I start highlighting, it's going to show best. And this is another tool that you can use, lining, to try to get everything to stand out when you're trying to have all of these areas that are very close to each other, and you're trying with contrast, light and dark, and high, warm and cool, but you also can add lining, and when you highlight up against that line, it's going to make those details stand out. So those are all tools that you would use to make all these details stand out. Yeah, for lining, I'm using pure blue liner, Val. Yeah. Oh, no kidding, Twisted Oma. Like, I don't even think about my age. I just do the same crap that I always have done, and except that my back is more fragile. But I don't even think about that as a relic of age. That's just a relic of, like, you know, like the fact that I've abused it. So I blame myself on that one. Like, most of the time I feel and act very young, so a lot of people will underestimate my age. I don't intend to stop being silly just because of my age. I think that's ridiculous. Silliness is one of the great pleasures of life. I will continue to be silly. Probably when I'm 80, I will still be silly. Everybody will think I'm senile, but I will know the truth. And I'll still be painting miniatures, damn it. Alrighty. My mother does not think silly is good. I have always been silly. She's always been kind of aghast at my silliness. That I should act my age, but humbug. But then again, she comes from that generation of actor ageness, the baby boomers. If I didn't have the silver wings, yeah. But I'm in my 40s. That's even worse, Val. See, you said 30s. A lot of people guess me in my late 30s. They really do. That is not what I am. But I have been blessed with, like, good skin and my hair color is light enough that if you don't, like, notice the silver, I can just pass. And my wrinkles are mostly smile lines, so it's all good. Plus, I hang out with a younger crowd. Like, I'm on sitting there on Twitch. I'm watching, silly little Overwatch, pro players who are in their 20s, and just I like to talk to all echelons of people. I like to have friends who are like in their 70s and 80s, and friends who are in their teens. Like, I don't like this assumption that you should kind of hang out with people in your same age category or anything like that. I've always gotten the most reward out of having friends across a very large, broad spectrum of ages, because I think you get a needed perspective when you have that on life and the universe and everything. I think you really... if you actually sit down with somebody who's a millennial and you talk to them about, like, their future and, like, how the job market is and all that kind of thing, maybe it removes some of your assumptions about things that you might have because you're not just a part of that generation. You didn't grow up with, with kind of the same challenges and goals. So I don't diss the younger generation and I don't diss the older generation. It's like, what I like to do is kind of understand where they're coming from, where everybody's coming from. Gotta always have context. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, and in some ways I'm a very typical Gen Xer, and in others I'm certainly not, so. Let's see. There, we got all our... See how our lining is making all these guys stand out a lot better, even before... Yeah, right. No kids, right? Except I have dog kids. I've had dogs. Dogs have given me the gray hairs. Oh, Kiri raised her head. She's like, "Are you talking about me?" Right. You could totally diss your own generation. Xennials or something, Barantor. Oh, that's terrible. Like, you shouldn't have, like... I mean, I guess any label is ridiculous, right? I don't know. Do Xennials get the best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds? I guess. Equal opportunity disser. Yeah, the fur babies give you gray hairs just like anybody. I guess it's quarter after, and so it's probably time we started at our usual, time, and I had a Kiri emergency, so I've got everything lined. We can come back to it tomorrow, and, the other thing that I would line, guys, just to give you an idea, is all these little studs that I'm going to put gold over, I would actually do liner around each of those, or just, you could also just fill them in. But you want the gold to stand out, so you want a shadow there. And you could use, like, a different shadow, like you could use a dark red for the ones on there, you can use something else for these. But I tend to like to make my liner color, like, the same over all surfaces, so... And if I find that this is just too blue or too harsh when I go to put the gold over it, then I'll cover over most of it with the gold base. So, yeah. Oh, I missed a spot. But yeah, kind of like that. So you want to make those little rivets kind of stand out. That way when you go to highlight them, your highlights will really pop. And it helps to separate them out from the... If they're right next to this bracelet, it helps to separate that out. There. Yeah, see, and if you can get all of everything to pop before you even start adding highlights, then you know you're in good stead, and that's why I line. Then you know that once you start highlighting, every one of those bracelets is going to start popping out all on its own. It's all going to look really cool and different. The diamonds are just flat. So what I might do here is I wouldn't use blue liner for this, Val, because this is a solid gold bracelet the way I'm reading it. So what I would do instead is bring in a dark brown for these, instead, I aligned around and between the panels, but within each panel, I'm going to do like I did over here, and I'm going to reach for a dark brown to be my shadow. Yeah, usually with tiny rivets, I just blob a little black blob on top of them, and then, yeah, when I go to hit them with my brush, it's just a tiny little touch of highlight. Yep, yeah, that's my mom. She was born at the earlier end of that for baby boomers. Yep. Yep. So technically, yeah, I guess by the time, I guess you got the late 80s when you were like I discovered like music and like culture and stuff, the stuff that defines like the generation. I probably started figuring it out around when I was around 8. So I guess if you were an early millennial or Gen Y, then you were still like, when you hit around 10, you were like late 80s. You could have been. Mostly though, you probably liked grunge. Although some of you were born when there was grunge, and then you would have liked something else. Hip-hop, maybe. To heck with the 21st century dabber. Right, like early, boy, that was early online dating. You hated grunge? Good. Grunge deserves to have no friends. I can't say that. I actually like some grunge. Oh yeah, so you're like totally conflicted there, Varl. There's very different philosophies in those two generations. At least when it comes to work and employment. Very, very different. Maybe not so different in other ways. I think it's this liking for all this dystopia stuff. I think the problem is that it seems like a lot of popular culture today feeds into the dystopia, that liking of those dystopian futures kind of thing. And I guess this isn't the first time it's happened. I mean, when 1984 came out, that was also the way the world kind of was trending. I'd like to see kind of when was 1984 published, guys? Was it 1960?
1948.
48? Oh, 48. Oh, because he inverted it? Okay. Yeah, so all right, so then baby boomers were born during that time. So I'd almost like to take a look at kind of the cycle of generations and see if there's parallels that repeat themselves, right, between an optimistic generation and maybe a more pragmatistic generation and maybe a more dystopic generation as far as general mindset. Of course, it's all generalizations, so you really can't go far with it, but trends would be interesting to see. Yeah, so... it's very interesting to me to see that repeat of that dystopic thing. Because yeah, I think in the late 40s, there was a lot of that. At post war, there seems to have been this dystopic future thing that I see a lot in the kids. Like I had nieces when I was married. My husband's nieces were definitely into the dystopia thing with Hunger Games and all that, and it's similar franchises, right? And there seems to have been that liking for it. And I wonder if that doesn't just play to our human tendency to focus on the negatives and get kind of absorbed in them, because that's definitely a human thing. It's a psychology thing.
I think that might have less to do with what generation you are and more to do with like what age you are. It seems like people pass through a phase where they're really interested in sort of perfecting society and how society should be, and then as they get older they are maybe more likely to accept society the way it is rather than try and think about how it should be.
Yeah, but what about the absorption with like negative, like really negative futures? Like
I think that's related to the idea of perfecting society.
Oh, okay. So just the it's the inverted belief thereof. Like society is like going to turn out terrible, but we would really like it not to. So we're going to talk about this dystopia in the hopes that it doesn't come true. There's a point. Yeah, dystopian can transcend generations for sure. I mean, it does. I just noticed it a lot with those kids, and so it was interesting to me. Because I was never one who liked any of that. Like when I was younger, I very much love my my happy endings. So I'm an incurable optimist. Maybe if I get old and we thoroughly continue to screw up the world, then that'll change. But I don't know. Alrighty, guys, we're gonna call it there. Justin, are you here? Are you ready for a raid?
I'm here.
Who do we have to raid out there?
Let's see. Ooh, we have zombies.
We have zombies. We have a wild zombies. Alrighty, let's raid the wild zombies, guys. Yes, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll do all our highlighting. We'll tackle some of the gold on these intricate thingies, and we'll rock it, guys. We'll rock it. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'm off to the grocery store. So, yeah, have fun. Stay safe. We will see you. Oh, and I'll be on later this afternoon, guys. Remember. Adios.
Yes, and actually tune in to Ann's show this afternoon because Proctor's show is canceled today. He texted me and said that he had a camping trip that he had. So thank you guys for coming out though. But yeah, check out Ann this afternoon, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning.